in this session, we will talk actually about GCC, AI in GCC. It is happening for real. And I'm extremely lucky to have two of true entrepreneurs who are truly applying AI in the region and beyond. So Nour Hassan, the founder of Arabic AI. And we have Magda, who is the CEO of Clarity AI in Middle East and APAC. So welcome.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
I'm going to move very practically on, from a session that is looking at the future and the art of the possible in what is happening today and how it will evolve. So maybe I start with you, Nour. Nour, when you founded Arabic AI, it was probably a very different company than it is today.
Absolutely.
And maybe you tell us a bit about the story and how AI is playing a part in the company today and in the future.
Sure. First, thank you so much. So I started this business 16 years ago. So I've been in the language space for 16 years, building in the translation space in Tarjama, and then building a lot of technology around language, which is a platform for translators, and then neural machine translation engine. That's before large language models came to life. And then Arabic AI was born through LLMs by fine-tuning a small language model to help us with improving Arabic language with multiple tasks, not only translation. It actually does much more than translation, summarization, Q&A. It's basically a document intelligence platform. So it looks completely different from where it started 16 years ago. Human-centric to now AI with human.
And of course, when you started 16 years ago, there was no LLMs or even machine learning. We were hardly using it.
True.
So how did you evolve into using these technologies, and what made you use them?
So in 2016, I actually went to Singularity University, and that was an eye-opener to what future could look like. I knew that if we stay as a traditional translation business, we're going to be obsolete. And probably, like, if you look, LLM's been between our hands for the past 2 years, maybe and a half now. And still, you still need human to, like, post-edit documents. But if you don't leverage technology, I had an intuition. I followed my intuition, honestly, and they spoke a bit about intuition on the models, that if I don't leverage the data that we currently have into building something substantial that allows the company to scale, we're going to be at least flat. I did not imagine that the technology is going to evolve this much, but it started with literally building blocks. So you don't start in a day, and you, as you know, Arabic language is very difficult. You don't have a lot of data online, so there's a lot of, like, even restrictions to the language and the nuance of the language. So you have to understand it very well. You need to build structured data. You need to know the language. You need to know edits before and after. You need to build the RAGs, the knowledge graph, the agentic platform, everything that understands Arabic. And this is basically the evolution of the business.
So you are not competing with the big players who are developing large language models. You're doing something on top?
No, it's a very good question, because I get asked this all the time. How is a small company going to compete with the giants? First, we can't. Second, we don't want to, because we are not interested in building a foundation model. Why would you? If there are great models out there, you just build on top of them. So technically, we chose a great model. It's an SLM, not an LLM. So we're focusing more on small language models that allows you to run on one GPU, secure, you can deploy on-prem, and then we fine-tuned our data on basically that model, and then we built the agentic platform to allow us to help clients with complex tasks through agents.
So I think what you're saying is actually very important, because from what I'm hearing from you is that you can have many, many entrepreneurs developing small language models that are specialized in domains, and then embedded these in workflows and agents that can spread, which gives opportunities in the GCC for many, many entrepreneurs.
True.
Very exciting. which leads me to you, Magda. I'm also very interested, your company, Clarity AI, you started some time ago as well, and then you evolved. So maybe you tell us a bit more how AI is now an important component of what you do.
For sure, thank you, and it's a pleasure being here. So Clarity AI was actually built since the beginning on AI in the US, sizing on an opportunity that we saw that clearly AI could help us. So to put it into numbers, typically in the US you have anywhere between 7,000, 14,000 equity research analysts. But there are about 33 million companies in the US alone when you talk about like from the large caps to moms and pops. Now, it's impossible for a equity research analyst to cover all those companies because they typically cover anywhere between like 5 to 15 companies, right? So if you even look into that, into the wall, right, where they are like over 65,000 listed companies and over 100 million companies, how is that information going to be gathered? And that information is needed for investors. So we started Clarity AI in the US, leveraging AI to gather all sustainability information, putting it on a platform, making sure that it's not just about quantity, but also quality. So we were running as well LLMs to like make sure that there is data reliability, that the quality is enhanced. We would also fill in gaps. So basically, to your question, we started with AI when we saw an opportunity gap in the market.
And I heard from Nour, for example, how you evolved on top of existing and new technologies like LLMs. And where do you see yourselves heading in the next 2-3 years using this technology, which is coming and very exciting from an AI perspective?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. So we started public markets because that was like where most data was available already publicly. But we see like a huge gap and opportunity as well in private markets. So definitely we're entering as well into supporting companies and investors on that front. We also see huge opportunities in real estate because at the end of the day, real estate and infrastructure, those are the sector that does the most emissions, and therefore we can have the highest impact from an environmental perspective. And then we see opportunities with Gen AI creating narratives. So we see a very nice use case like supporting companies telling their stories through numbers and how they've been evolving and talking about their climate transition plans.
Wonderful. What is very exciting is that both of you are CEOs and entrepreneurs in the Middle East and GCC. I would like to understand from you, really, how do you feel about the potential for GCC? I'm very excited, like many people, about some of the activities and the announcements that are going. Qatar Investment Authority, for example, is heavily investing in a very targeted way in AI in different sectors, and they prioritize the sectors. We heard, of course, about the UAE, 5 gigawatts of capacity. Saudi with the humane announcement. But at an entrepreneurial level, how do you see the opportunity to develop new businesses? Maybe I start with you, Nour, in the Middle East. And are you very positive that the Middle East and the Gulf region could become a genuine world leader? Or do you think we've got some obstacles there?
Yeah. So I think first, this is my first time in Qatar in this conference. So it gave me a great insight on what the market is bringing and what's basically here to offer from opportunities. So I've been living in GCC for 14 years, and this gives me, first, all what we've been like hearing from Saudi, UAE, and Qatar on developments in AI is quite exciting, great opportunities. I think there's a lot of emphasis and investments happening in the infrastructure space, which allows companies like us to benefit from eventually, right? Do I see an immediate opportunity for us today? Yes, because first, great ecosystem from an investment perspective, but I see it more on a partnership level with the government as at this stage, so they can give us infrastructure support. Our direction is more to work with enterprises and do more partnerships with consulting companies, banks, much more than probably governmental entities for the time being, because all these initiatives that are coming out are building their own companies as well. So they would probably be looking at the foundation model, data centers, infrastructure, and then phase 2 will be partnering up with companies like us, because they will need companies like us eventually to build these systems and integrate with the technologies we're building. So every company will probably look completely different. They'll go deeper in a specific sector. You'll have specific knowledge, and then these basically countries or governments will integrate you in their systems. So I am definitely optimistic. I think if you're in this region, you can't but be optimistic. Everything we're seeing is great. It's from a startup perspective. If I look 5 years ago, it was impossible for me to call an engineer in Silicon Valley and tell them move to the region. Now I get asked, can we join? And this alone is a great sentiment that it is changing. People want to live here. It's great markets. It's very welcoming, very encouraging. And there's lots of support. So I think we're going to see great innovation coming from this part of the world.
Wonderful. And I like actually the way you set up the answer to this question, because you see there's an ecosystem building.
Correct.
As you have the foundations in terms of capacity and compute, and the government begin to invest, and the businesses, then you, like your companies, find their part in that ecosystem.
True. That's the only way.
Wonderful. Magda, what is your view on the potential?
I fully agree with Nour. Honestly, I think the GCC is set in a privileged position for all the reasons that you mentioned. I just would like to add energy. So to run AI, you're going to need lots of energy, right? And abundant energy at a low cost, ideally low carbon. And here is as well, like a lot of that move, like the energy as well is here. So if you combine the energy, the infrastructure, the quality of life, like more and more talent, we see a lot of people from around the world willing to come over to the region to live here. I mean, I'm super optimistic when it comes to AI in the GCC. And then also the impact that it's going to have, right? Because if I take it back to what we do at Clarity, research and information from the region has been typically scarce. And I see that AI can really make the GCC leapfrog, and in terms of like financial and sustainability information, and therefore even further support investment and resource allocation. So heavily optimistic as well.
Fantastic. And I mean, AI, we, for example, at McKinsey, we found that the biggest barrier to scaling AI is not actually the technology quite often, or even the data quality. It's culture. It's the way people need to work in a different way. How much do you see this as a barrier for the region, and how should the region address this challenge, whether education or talent management or whatever?
So I see it a lot, because imagine from being a service business evolving into technology, the amount of resistance that we got even when we introduced machine translation to help the translators. There's absolute resistance to the AI because there's fear from the AI that this thing is going to take my job. The more I make it better, it's going to replace me, so let me resist it. And I've seen this a lot internally. So there is a lot of change of culture that needs to happen, lots of training. And this is why we're actually training a lot, in even training people on your job. You're going to lose your job. So we know, for example, that in certain industries, sadly, with time, there's no job for certain basically professions. So what do you do with these people eventually? So there's a moral obligation as well on any company to train these people for them and for us to benefit. So translators should become prompt engineers. And then from prompt engineers, you need to think of what comes next. I actually wrote an article a few weeks ago about the human behavior. And the article says, technology is easy, human is hard. And it's so true, because if you go into any company today and you do an analysis on the efficiency of usage on Copilot or ChatGPT, you'll discover the usage is mainly, maybe 60, 70%, maybe more, use it for email, search, asking questions, and probably write me a message. And that's the level that we're getting from the technology that is between the hands of people today. Copilot, similar things. And you run some ROI on the investment, and you discover that, okay, I'm not getting the right efficiency that I should be getting, even if I'm giving my team 10 tools. You will not give that, you'll not get that eventually until you invest in the workflows, the automations, customizing this to your needs, because every department has completely different needs. And this is basically what we're trying to do. We're automating specific workflows for clients and companies to take legacy way of doing things into more, let's say, insightful, intelligent, more efficient and productive. And we're not saying we want to replace the human. We want to make them more efficient and more intelligent, basically. And by doing intelligent is technically they focus not on the tedious tasks, they focus on the important task. So that's basically what we're trying to do. But like if I can say or stress on one point, it is the training of human today on AI and what the future looks like for them. I think this should be #1 agenda on every company.
And Magda, do you have the same challenges? I mean, you have many human researchers. Are they very worried that they'll be replaced by agents? And what do you say to them?
Well, I say that certainly jobs will change, but like we don't think that we are going necessarily to replace them. Like what we're doing is augmenting their capabilities.
Right.
So if today in their job they are like looking for controversies and exposures where the companies that they might cover are doing, that's something you can very easily do with AI. So for instance, at Clarity, daily we scan over 250,000 articles in 200 countries, and we map those to the companies that we cover. So like that's a job that AI can do very well, but then the equity analysts, what they do is like they review those insights, right? And they think more about forecasting, future looking. It's a different type of job, so the job is still needed, it's just that it's changing, and it's getting augmented, and their capabilities are being expanded through AI. I fully agree with you, though, that capacity building, education is core, because everyone otherwise resorts to their old ways, to their traditional sources, and it's very easy said, more difficult to be done. I see in the GCC, for instance, the UAE recently introduced AI curriculum in schools, made it mandatory. I wouldn't be surprised if we see other regional economies as well doing that. And you know, at the end, another advantage of the region is that the population is relatively young. So hopefully as well that adoption of AI and technology would be relatively smooth, and again, hopefully ahead of other markets. So.
I want to build on this point because you started talking about education of population and young people in the GCC, and without the humans who are excited about using AI, we're not going to really scale it that much. So from the point of view of being business leaders, what would you say to the leaders in Qatar and in the GCC in terms of what actions that would really make a difference to get talent ready, whether it's education or otherwise? What would you, I start with you, Nour.
This is a tough question, because I think this is on every leader's agenda today on like how does the future look like. So I think if we want to look at the population, we have young population. So we are, this is great. And again, you have lots of potential, but there is lots of training that needs to happen and reskilling for people across all basically sectors in the country. So technically you need to look into how do you reskill consultants? How do you reskill, like how do you reskill smart people, right? And how do you change the behavior of someone very smart, set in their own way, been in a career for 20, 30 years. It's so difficult to tell them 70-80% of the job you do is already being done in AI, and I need you to start focusing on 1, 2, 3, and not only that, I need you to do more. Because first, there's going to be price pressure on everything we do, right? So we need to increase efficiency and productivity. So I'm going to expect from the person to do more within their job, with probably maybe 4 days a week, maybe 3, maybe actually that's going to change as well the amount of hours we do work. But we'll focus on the intelligence part of things. So there has to be training and reskilling. When it comes to schools, I think it is, we probably focus today on retraining the teacher, right? Very soon we're going to have AI teaching the kids fully a topic to their needs, to their skills, because there's a big gap in schools when it comes to students. Like you go to a class and they teach them in the same way, expecting all the kids to be smart in the same way and absorbing the subject in the same, basically, level. That's not going to be it. So the future is going to be customized education. So probably what we need to think of is if they're getting educated in this way and potentially AI can do in 10 years most of the jobs, what do we teach them? So probably this is a question of like values, empathy, critical thinking. Maybe that should be part of the focus on, I would say, the younger generation, and reskilling for people that graduated already and went into market.
So that's a complete overhaul of the way that we conduct education in the GCC.
True.
Yeah. And Magda, what's your view?
No, once more, I fully agree with you, Nour. I think that it's very difficult to pinpoint specific technical skills that are going to be needed in 20 years from now, because everything changes so far that taking that risk or that bet, it's too much of a risk. So I think I would definitely bet on building values, building social skills, like things that, although there might be robots by then as well interacting with people, empathy and human contact and touch. So there will still be like things that will be needed. And to the leaders, I would definitely say to keep on, and that's something they're doing already. And you touched to the 4-week work week. Keep on making sure that the GCC remains good quality of life. Because at the end, if you're competing for international talent, you want to make sure there is security, good job opportunities, high remuneration. So walking cities, like Qatar, it's impressive how green it is despite of where we live. So make enjoyable cities that top talent really wants to come and live here and thrive as humans. Because at the end, that should be as well our goal, right? Like beyond productivity and capital gains, like how do we make sure that future generations live a more richer lives?
Great.
Wonderful. Now, I will ask you a question which is a bit personal to all of us. I get asked it all the time. And I'll start with you, Magda. If your kids or your friends' kids, let's say they are 12 years old, and they ask you, what should I study in the future? Engineering, computer science, whatever. What would you advise them, bearing in mind how business is changing so fast with AI?
So I'll give you actually a very personal answer to that very personal question. We all live life once, and I think that one should study whatever you feel passionate about, because I've seen careers dramatically change, and when you can do the most impact is when you find yourself in the right place doing something that you love. So no one really will have a crystal ball. Like there were like thousands of people going into coding, and then suddenly everyone was like, oh, but now coding is over, like the no-code technology. So do something you love, that you feel interested. Even if you fail, I think that, again, I would instill a lot of culture of failure. I think that failing and succeeding is like so necessary, right? So don't overthink it too much. If there's a subject that you find interesting, go for it, and keep trying. It's a little about tenacity, passion, the things that will make you succeed, like no matter what technology will be out there.
Agreed.
And Nour, what do you think?
I tend to agree with Magda.
Yeah.
So basically, we go to school. So there is part of us going to school not only just to study. There's discipline, right? So there are a lot of things that human interaction, social interaction. We form relationships and we make friends in schools. So I think that part is so important. So you have lots of people doing homeschooling, but again, they do lots of social activities for their kids because they feel that's already, there's a gap. So I think that is going to be needed. And obviously, there are going to be topics that they need to learn for critical thinking. Even if AI is going to do most of the work, where is the human part that's going to remain relevant? I don't subscribe into this 2027 that we're not going to have jobs, and I can't fathom this, so I will resist it maybe for the coming 10 years. So I'm definitely with Magda on studying something you love, studying something that can make your brain work, and you have to gain discipline, and you have to make friends, and you have to have social interaction, and you have to learn empathy, compassion, and these things don't come if you sit at home playing games.
Wonderful. And by the way, I've been a scientist and from a family of scientists, but when my kids asked me that question, I didn't encourage them to do engineering or computer science or maths like I did. There's one who's done geography, the other one who's done history at university, but they're working in business and they're using other skills. You're totally right.
Absolutely.
So I think we finish. Thank you so much. Your success is extremely inspiring and example to hopefully a lot of other entrepreneurs in the GCC. And I love the fact that you are very positive about the GCC.